Hey guys, it's Kwana back again with another Her Real Review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. I am here to talk all about that very shocking, startling, amazing season 5, episode 16, season finale for This Is Us, the wedding we have been waiting for, Kevin and Madison, and so much more. So many answers, but so many questions. So I want to take a moment and just recap and then also give you my thoughts and my theories about what we're going to get, guys, because I feel like we got more questions than answers, and knowing that we only have one more season left of This Is Us, and it's going to be an abbreviated season because we're not getting new episodes until January, we have a lot to unpack. But that being said, I feel like this is one show that the writers are going to get things together and they're going to tie everything up, because they left us crumbs all throughout this episode, and I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice at all. And it wasn't until then that I was like, oh my gosh, that's what that meant. So let's talk all about the show. But before we get started, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button down below. We're trying to grow over here. I want to thank you to all of the 147 subscribers as of today. Thank you so much for riding with me. You guys keep me motivated. You keep me charged up and ready to go. So I want to thank you. But let's talk about This Is Us right now, because we start with a frame story of Kevin preparing for his vows. Seemingly, he's got a suit on. He looks pretty much the same. He looks like Kevin looks now. And so we're like, oh, okay, it's time for the wedding. We're seeing him getting ready for the wedding. And I think most fans, if you're like me, going into this, have been totally preparing for the idea that this wedding wasn't going to take place and that Kevin was going to back out of it. And they've been leaving us clues about that happening all throughout the show, from Sophie's call last episode to just the fact that we haven't seen Kevin really show a lot of romantic emotion toward Madison. And here we are, we see him preparing for his wedding day and things look promising. So then we go flashback into the young Pearson storyline. I'm going to go ahead and just summarize and tell you all about the young Pearson storyline right now. But there are clues there. So if you weren't paying attention, you didn't notice the clues, but the clues were there. So we see Rebecca. She's having her mommy self-care night. She's got her popcorn. She's got her M&Ms. She's ready to watch that very infamous season finale episode of Dynasty, the wedding episode, when all of a sudden a football game runs across her VHS tape and she is heated. Those of y'all who are old enough to remember VHSs know that is the worst thing that you could do to your mom, is to let someone or to you accidentally record over her stories or her shows. It was the end of the world. There was no waiting for this to replay again. It was not going to replay again. You weren't going to get reruns of shows until they went into syndication. So there was nothing you could do. There was no waiting to go buy this. This is the day and age when none of that was the case. And so I just felt my heart breaking for her. I remember doing this to my mom, and I remember having this done to me. I was like, dang, Rebecca, you recorded Dynasty. You should have popped the tab so that nobody could record over your show. She was fired up. She went and found Jack and went off on him. She completely blacked out, didn't even realize that the kids were there listening to the whole conversation. And when she comes back and she realizes the kids have heard everything, they of course try to reassure them in Pearson fashion that they're okay. Mommy and daddy are okay. Mommy loves them. Mommy just needed her me time, and now she's a little frustrated with daddy. Next day, the kids wake up and they're standing there staring at them and just looking at them in the middle of the morning, like break of dawn, just looking at them, as Rebecca said, looking like children of the corn. I know when my kids do that to me, I'm like, look, y'all got to stop this, because one day I'm going to wake up and punch you dead in your throat. Like, I'm sorry, it's just going to be a reaction. Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens in the scary movies. No, we're not about that life. But eventually the kids are like, we're worried about you. Are you going to get divorced? We want you to love each other, da-da-da-da-da. They're little kids. They don't know. And so Jack and Rebecca show them their wedding tape. It really resonates with Randall, who feels like their whole family should get married. And what do? In Pearson fashion, the whole family gets married. They have a family wedding. It is a beautiful scene. I was like, wow, that would be something really special for families to do. I see you. This is us trying to, have some trends and everything. Okay, trying to start some stuff. So it was a very touching segment that just kind of showed the importance of that family unit, but also goes along with that wedding theme, because we had the Dynasty episode with the wedding, and now we're having them have a wedding. So the whole show is themed weddings. We're just focusing and doubling down on the wedding motif. Then we get to flashbacks of young Madison. Now, I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm going to just talk about the most important, the two that we get more immediately into the show. The first is Madison's mom, who we know left her father and left Madison, basically abandoned Madison to be raised by her father. And she leaves Madison with these earrings for her to wear on her wedding day, and saying, I hope they bring you, more luck on your wedding day than they brought for me. And she leaves Madison, and we see Madison kind of like thinking about this throughout the day of her wedding and leading up to the wedding. We also see a moment where her father, who is like a complete a-hole, sorry, but he is, and he's telling her like she's trying to like go out to prom, and she should just settle and not try to find like the prom king, but just settle for someone who's good enough for her. Like, gosh, okay, let's sow some more low self-esteem into your child, why don't you? And it's kind of sets up the premise of like Madison just kind of accepting things in life and not really fighting for big romances because she feels like she doesn't deserve it. On the reverse, and we're going to come back to Madison later, on the reverse of that, we actually get the start of this episode of the wedding day, which starts with Kevin just going overboard in his usual Kevin self. He's trying to have the perfect wedding. I don't know how many of you picked up on that, but he says, I want everything to be perfect. And this, we've seen this in Kevin since the beginning, this idea of everything having to be big, everything having to be showy, everything having to be Jack Pearson level of big productions and big moments. And he's really fighting hard for this wedding to be perfect. Now, all I kept thinking was, you couldn't hire people to make sure that this wedding was perfect. I mean, you are a big time movie star. You rent out a whole entire like hotel and venue for this. Why couldn't you just hire people to make sure that this was all executed the way that you needed it to go? And even Uncle Nicky was like, dang, how much money do you have? Questions that we've all been wondering, Uncle Nicky, how much money does Kevin have? I mean, what kind of a big star is Kevin really? We want to know. Is he Brad Pitt level big time star? What is exactly going on here? Is he one of the Chris's? What's going on? Because they're blurring the line a little bit. We really don't know what's going on with Kevin and his wealth income. We see the Philly branch or the Pittsburgh branch of the Pearsons getting ready for the wedding. We see Randall is there, Beth is there, Tess and Deja and Annie is there, and they're Miguel and Rebecca are there, and they're loving on the grandkids, and Beth is talking about Malik and how Malik is applying for these schools, and he's applying for area schools around the city, and he's waiting on Penn State to tell whether or not he's gotten in there. And so they're bragging on him. And so then Beth, being the supportive mom that she does, goes to turn to look at Tess and says, hey, Tess is dating the class valedictorian at her school, and they are a wonderful student in person. Tess is not throwing Beth a bone. Poor Beth. Beth is trying. She's trying to learn these pronouns. She's trying to learn this gender inclusive language, and Tess is she's just being a sullen teenager, and she just can't get out of it. And it makes me wish we had more screen time with Annie. Because poor Annie, we don't know anything going on in Annie's life right now. Annie is just there to be cute. We don't know anything going on with Annie. Anyway, the big takeaway from this is Rebecca wants to reconnect with Randall and find out about his trip to New Orleans to learn about his birth mother. And Randall is like, I don't want any part of that conversation. I don't want to get anywhere near it. And so when they finally link up with Kevin, he's like, I'm going to have to talk to mom about this. And so he proceeds to tell his mom about going and finding out about Laurel and meeting High and everything. And Rebecca cries. Oh my gosh, does Rebecca just breaks down and crying. I'm like, oh my goodness, here we are. He already didn't really want to tell her, and here she is breaking down crying. But eventually, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, she comes back and she apologizes for getting emotional. She says, hey, I'm probably going to be emotional, but at the end of the day, it's not that I don't want you to tell me these things. It's that I feel guilty. I was wrong for keeping this from you. I think about what your life could have been. Could you have had a relationship with them? And it makes me feel guilty. Ultimately, Randall, he doesn't, and I appreciated this so much, he doesn't excuse her actions, but he lets her know that he realizes he had a great mom. He had a great dad. Yeah, does he wish he would have known William earlier? Yes. Does he wish he would have gotten a chance to find Laurel? Yes. But he had great parents who raised him well, and he comes from great stock that he didn't know about, great genetics that he didn't know about, that now he can see those things. Now that he has those stories, he can see those things in his daughters, and he can pass on to them, and he feels like he has a more complete story. I thought that was a great full circle moment. I probably added a little bit to what he said, but that's essentially what he was getting at right there, okay? VIP for this episode has to be Uncle Nicky, because Uncle Nicky was coming with the running dialogue. He was trying to be the videographer, getting every moment on camera, and I was here for it, especially because Nicky was acting hecka shady last episode, but now he was all in. And I hollered when he told Kevin and Madison they were going to need to rent a U-Haul for his gifts. Well, the reason being is because this is the title of the episode is the Adirondacks, the chairs, not necessarily the mountains, but the chairs. And that's what he's given Kevin and Madison. He's had them engraved with their initials. And he has this moment where he says, when I think about marriage, what I see is two old people sitting on these chairs having uncomfortable silence. Or whatever, or comfortable silence. It sounded like he said uncomfortable. Knowing Nicky, he said uncomfortable. And so he's giving these chairs to Kevin and Madison. Now, this is important because Kevin is going crazy to make this wedding perfect, to the point where Miguel and Nicky are trying to build a backdrop for the wedding. Again, Kevin, why didn't you hire somebody? I don't understand why you guys are DIYing it. You have enough money not to be DIYing it the day of the wedding. It just doesn't make sense. But Kevin is micromanaging and nitpicking everyone. And so it's probably more that he did have people, but he's just being a control freak and taking over because he wants everything to be perfect. And it goes back to a lot of what he said in season 3 before he ended up having the one night stand with Madison, when he went on that weird date with that woman that ended up being married, and she was like, he was her hall pass. I don't remember what episode that was, but you guys probably remember it. And on that episode, he kind of talks about his dad and how his dad had these grand gestures. And if you remember, he had a grand gesture where he planned this date for her in front of this concert hall or whatever. And that's what this wedding, to me, that's what this wedding is for her. For him, he feels like if he can make this wedding perfect, then their marriage will be perfect. And we're still getting the vibe that he is seeing Madison through the gaze of the family and the ideal and not who she really is, if that makes sense. And it's sad to watch because you can kind of see things just snowballing, and you can kind of see where the vibe is heading. It's not heading in a good direction. Let's talk about Kate and Toby. The beginning of the episode, Toby finally reveals to Kate that he's been offered this job in San Francisco at the startup company. And she's all excited, but then he says, yeah, but they want me in San Francisco 3 days out of the week. So he's going to be home for 4 days and there for 3 days. And Kate is like, nope. not having it. And on top of it, you started a sentence off with like, I love my kids, but like the fact that you have to but to loving your kids is a problem, Toby. You need to go ahead and get some counseling, get some help before you destroy your life. Later on in the episode, Kate is being there for Madison. It's great to see that their relationship seems strong, and it seems strong regardless of where Madison and Kevin are. Like, it seems like they genuinely love each other. They're going to have that sister bond no matter what. And so Kate is kind of listening to Madison talk about her relationship with Kevin, and it jogs Kate to feel like, or excuse me, Madison is talking about her relationship with Kevin, and it jogs Kate to say, okay, I need to meet my husband halfway. So she calls up her boss, you know, that little mean British dude, and it's like, I'm going to quit. And he basically goes on a spiel about how he didn't want to hire her in the first place, but now she's proven great at her job and great for the kids, and he refuses to accept her resignation. It was interesting because she resigned, and I was like, she didn't tell Toby she's about to quit her job yet. This is not going to go over well. But ultimately, when he refuses to accept her resignation, she goes to Toby and is like, I'm not going to quit my job, but I would rather have 4 days with you than all of the days with someone else. And so they resolved to make their marriage work. She's going to let Toby take this job, which is going to bring him some happiness, and they're just going to make the distance work. Now, big old red flag, because they're married with kids, and who's going to help take care of those kids? I don't know. And we know Pearson's, other than Randall and Beth, don't do well with distance. So it's looking crazy shaky right now. Crazy shaky. Back around to some of the other storylines that I didn't talk about, which is one, Malik and Deja. Malik calls Deja and tells her he got into Penn State. But not only that, he's been keeping a secret. He actually applied to 5 colleges, and he applied to Harvard and got in. So it definitely looks like they probably are going to be suffering some pains of some distance. Perhaps he won't even be on the show, which I've been saying for a while. He's older. He has a kid. I didn't even realize that actually he was that much older, that he was actually applying for colleges this soon. I don't see it working out, but who knows? We still don't know who Deja is with in the time jump. So perhaps Deja and Malik managed to make it work out. But most high school romances don't. So this is a very natural way to break this relationship up. I guess we'll find out in January. The other thing is the whole Tess and Beth issue. Because people were going in on Tess online, y'all. So Tess gets there, sees this dress that they want her to wear for the wedding, and she's not having any of it. Everyone wants me to be someone else, which I genuinely don't feel like anybody in the family is really looking at Tess to be a girly girl. They're just doing what they want. It's Kevin and Madison's wedding. She's having bridesmaids, so all the bridesmaids had the same dress. It wasn't that big of a deal, I don't think, but forgive me if I'm wrong. Beth takes it upon herself to do some relationship building with her child, and so she says, we're going to alter the dress. Everybody online was like, no, Beth, don't do this. It's the day of the wedding. You haven't asked the bride. It's going to be bad. The writers know their fan base, and so they went back and had Beth go to Kevin and ask if it's okay. And she alters the dress. She gives it a black top. She fringes the skirt and makes it fit more with Tess's personality. And then Tess finally says what we've all been saying: Beth is a good mom, and she has a great mom who is very accepting of her and loves her no matter what. So hopefully next season we can kind of put a pin on the teen angst and kind of back away from that for a little while and focus more on just the goals and the accomplishments that the family needs to make before the show wraps up. All right, so here we go back to Kevin and Madison, because now we've kind of gotten every relationship out the way except for Kevin and Madison. Madison shows up at Kevin's room. Kevin is not dressed for the wedding, and he's slightly sunburned. And she's flashed back to her last relationship that she was in right before she meets Kate and Toby, and how basically she was just settling for what was good enough. She had taken her dad's advice and she was just settling. And this guy breaks up with her, and she basically begs the guy to stay with her even though she knows the relationship is dead. She realizes that she's been kind of doing the same thing with Kevin, that she finally did find the prom king and meet the prom king and have babies with the prom king, but that romantic love that she wants, him loving her for her and not for the idea of family, it's not there. And so she finally confronts him with this and says, can you say that you love me? And y'all, Kevin dances around this and is like, I love what you do for our family and for our kids. And she's like, yeah, you're not saying that you love me. And so this is what I wanted from last week's episode. My theory for last week's episode, I'm so glad that I got what I wanted. Kevin and Madison don't need to be married. I do think that they are building some things that have potential, but it is too soon. They are rushing to the altar because of this idea of what the perfect family should be, mostly built up by Kevin. Kevin doesn't know who he is. Kevin needs to pull a Julia Roberts in Runaway Bride, go somewhere, sit down, eat some eggs, and figure out who he is as a person. And Madison can't give him that. I mean, I'm sorry, she just can't do that for you. You have to figure it out for yourself. I'm glad that they made Madison the empowered one and didn't have it to where Kevin broke up with her, but where she ended things with Kevin. And that is basically, she breaks up with Kevin, or at least calls off the wedding. It's very left unclear of whether they're actually broken up or whether the wedding is just called off, because they're still going to be family. They have kids together, you know. The family gathers around Kevin to console him, and everybody is there supporting him. And he seems like he's in a kind of a good place, because he admits that he wasn't able to tell her that he loved her, and, you know, maybe she made the right call for herself. Rebecca tells him everything's going to be okay. One of the most important things that we hear that connects to that flash forward that we've been getting all of the previous seasons is Rebecca tells him, you know, she doesn't know how much time she has left. And so in the time that she has left, she wants him to build her the dream house that Jack designed. Now, I think this is great, a great connection, a great way to explain how that house gets built. The problem I have with this is, as a storytelling arc, is Kevin is a character who is doomed in one sense because he's constantly chasing after his father's shadow. And here is just another way that he's going to literally be chasing after something his father has done. And it can work for good, but it could also go very bad. And it makes me wonder, they're going to have to make it work for good very quickly in the next season, because again, abbreviated season, final season, it's a lot. It's a lot. What makes it more a lot? Here we go, bringing it back to Dynasty, and shocking is I know everybody was waiting for our normal time jump, because okay, I had completely forgotten that we were seeing Kevin in a suit practicing vows. I had completely forgotten that ever existed, and I was just waiting for our normal flash forward, everybody gathered around Rebecca's deathbed. No, that's not what we got. We got Kevin back in that tuxedo practicing his vows. I don't know if you saw this, the paper that his notes were written on, it says Big Three homes. So he's actually started a construction company called the Big Three. Either he has or Randall has, but more likely he has. So there's that. I don't know if he's running it or if they got somebody else running it, but there's that. Okay, we know his movie career is kind of shaky right now. You know, he basically bombed, and he may not, you know, be a big star anymore, so we'll see. So then he leaves out the bathroom, and we see expose, a magazine article with Randall's picture. Randall was looking like, okay, people's 50 sexiest men alive or whatever cover with his little swag, and it said rising star. You cannot see based off of the magazine, like what magazine it was, and rising star could be anything. I don't think it means that Randall has gotten into acting, but I'll be honest, we don't know rising star for what. Is it politics? Is it construction? We don't know. It could be anything. Then Kevin walks out into the hallway. He's walking out talking to Randall, and we see Uncle Nicky with Randall rushing. Thomas, I know I'm late, but the wife wanted stockings. Okay, Nicky and Sally. Now pause. For all of you watching this who are of the belief that Nicky has married Rebecca, stop. I am saying it, calling it right now, and you can dog me out next season if I'm wrong. But come on, for as much as Randall and Kevin gave her flack for marrying Miguel eons after Jack died, there is just no way that they're that happy-go-lucky with Nicky and that he has somehow married Rebecca. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. Like, that's his uncle, his dad's brother. They are going to feel all kinds of some kind of way about that. No, Nicky has met Sally, and him and Sally have gotten married, or I always forget daggone Jennifer, not Jennifer Lawrence, the Jennifer that used to be on House and Once Upon a Time. I don't know why I'm forgetting her name, but that chick, maybe he married her. I mean, hey, it's December, May, December romances exist. Either way, Nicky done married somebody and he done went and bought them some stockings. So my bet is on Sally, because, older women got to have their stockings nowadays. Young women, I used to be one of those women. Nowadays, I will not wear stockings if I can help it. And so Kevin goes and knocks on the door, and we see Madison opening the door. She looks like she's dressed in a bridesmaid's dress. Beth is there. They look like bridesmaids. But he and Madison are very relaxed, having a nice little banter. She mentions, I've told you 12 times since this morning to not come in here. That leads me to believe that he will end up with Madison, guys. I think that he's going to take a break, but he is going to fall in love with Madison and woo Madison, I think. Now, I could be wrong. I was really trying to freeze frame and look at his hand to see if he had a ring on. But I will say this. It looks like Madison had on the earrings that her mother gave her, which makes me believe that Madison is married. I could not see either one of their hands because their hands were flailing around so daggone much. But I think that Madison and Kevin are married in the future. That is my theory. I'm sticking to it. Suddenly, who comes out? He's asking about, can I tell some movie quote jokes and da 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 da? And who comes out? Kate in a daggone wedding dress. Sis look good, but what? This is the last time I'm doing this? What? Toby is where? What? Mouth just on the floor. I just can't. Do the writers understand how much we were like championing for Kate and Toby in the beginning, only to now see that she's getting married to someone else likely? What? Which makes sense and adds up to why Toby would say to Kevin and Randall, thank you for calling me. Because I kept saying, why would he say thank you for calling me? Because if he's a member of the family, it's like going to be a no-brainer that you're going to be there when the matriarch of the family is dying. So if he's no longer officially a Pearson, yes, you would say thank you for calling me. And yes, it would be like, well, she wanted you here because you're kind of still a part of the family. Like, that makes sense. But dang, y'all. I mean, in my feelings. But pause. We're going to come back to this because Kevin walks out and it's the daggone British dude. And he's like, can I tell some British jokes at your expense? And he's like, well, if you can't take the Mickey out of your future brother-in-law. What? Now, I thought for sure if Toby and Kate got divorced and she remarried anybody, it was going to be the next door neighbor. But that dude, yeah. So this is the biggest bombshell, because basically we know that we're going to be getting the decline of Kate and Toby's relationship, but also the progression of Kate and this dude whose name I don't even remember relationship. I'm still beyond words. I'm still just shocked beyond belief. But here's my theory, okay? Here's my theory. I think that the show's going to do a time jump, because we're not getting any episodes till January. And for the most part, the show tries to film in some kind of sequence where it matches up with real timeline. Sorry, I had a call. The other thing is, I do think that when we come back, because Toby will have already taken the job and will have already worked, we're going to already have that distance between them. Perhaps even them just not being together, like when the show comes back. This show is gut-wrenching, but at the same time, with maybe 10 episodes left in the show, I don't see them dragging that out in such a way where we're dealing with the breakup, because you have to deal with the breakup and also be building attachment to the idea of this new guy, right? You're gonna have to do that, and you still got other storylines you have to tell, so you don't have a lot of time to spend with that. So definitely next season is going to probably more heavily focus on Kate and Kevin, and we're probably going to just get snippets of Randall just being the brother who gives wisdom and things like that. It's kind of weird, because technically Randall is the big brother because he was born first, but I think Kevin is the first, because it's first came him, then came Kate, then came Randall. But he will give the big brotherly advice. So that's my theory for next season. But guys, I just can't believe it. I am still in shock and awe and dismay about that season finale. I don't know how to feel. And the fact that we have to wait so long before we get new episodes has me completely shook to my core. I will be rewatching at some point in time this season. Might even do a whole rewatch of the whole entire series, just so I can piece together, because we definitely know that Dan Fogelman has said multiple times that the show has been pretty well mapped out since the beginning. I can appreciate you learned from Dan and Dave. You learned. We're not going Game of Thrones on this show, okay? This show started great and needs to end great. We're going to hold you guys to it. So let me know down below in the comments, are you still completely shocked? I know the answer is yes, but let me know anyway. And do you think Kevin and Madison make it to the altar and are married? Who is Nicky married to? What is going to happen with Toby? Like, I just hope that Toby doesn't go off into the sun. Like, I don't want him to be miserable. He's still Chris Sullivan. He's still Chris. We love Chris. So let me know down below what you think is going to happen in season 6. And we have 6 months to harass the writers to make sure that we get all the things that we need, all the questions we have need answers to. So if there are things out there that we haven't talked about this season that we need answers to, let me know down below in the comments, because I will probably make a couple of videos addressing some of those questions. And guys, this is it. This is it. So if you are here for This Is Us stay, hit the subscribe button so you can get that notification when we come back in January. But I will definitely try to make some stuff over the next few months, just breaking down things or talking about my top 10 episodes, things of that nature. In fact, I've already done that once before, but I'm going to fine tune that, but I'll leave the link up somewhere for you to find that particular episode. But guys, yeah, it has been a wild ride this season, lots of ups and downs, but wow, Kate and Toby, what can I say? That's it. That's all I have. So until next time, toodles.